Did you know that 75% of employees in the US have witnessed some form of unethical behavior in their workplace? An eye-opening statistic, isn't it? Unethical behavior in business settings can have far-reaching consequences that go beyond just the individuals involved. When unethical conduct seeps into a company, it can negatively affect employee morale. Workers start to feel disillusioned, their trust in the company erodes, and productivity can take a serious hit. Then, there's the company's reputation to consider. In an age where information travels at the speed of light, news of unethical practices can spread like wildfire, tarnishing a company's image in the blink of an eye. And let's not forget the financial implications. Legal fines, lost business, and the cost of damage control can add up quickly, taking a significant toll on a company's bottom line. So it's clear that ethical behavior in business isn't just about doing what's right. It's also about ensuring the success and sustainability of the business. We have spoken to some of the leading experts in the field of business ethics to get their insights. Dr. Eleanor Rigby, a renowned scholar and thought leader in business ethics, emphasizes, "Moral development is not an optional extra in business, it is fundamental. It shapes the character of the organization and influences every decision made." She further explains, "Moral reasoning is the process by which individuals determine what is right and wrong. It's not about following a set of rules, but about understanding the principles that underpin those rules and applying them in different situations. Moral behavior isn't just about doing what's right when it's easy. It's about doing what's right even when it's hard, even when it's inconvenient, even when there are impediments." Common thread is clear. Ethics is not just a component of business. It is the very foundation on which businesses should be built. As our experts have highlighted, moral reasoning is a critical component of ethical business practices. Now, let's delve into the concepts of moral development and moral reasoning. Moral development is a journey, not a destination. It's a process that unfolds over a lifetime, shaping the way we make ethical decisions. This journey typically progresses through three main stages, each with its own unique characteristics. We start with the pre-conventional stage. As the name suggests, this is where we begin, often in childhood. Here, morality is largely dictated by external forces. We view right and wrong through a simple lens. If an action leads to punishment, it's bad. If it leads to reward, it's good. As we grow and mature, we transition into the conventional stage. During this period, we start to internalize societal norms and expectations. Our sense of morality becomes intrinsically linked to societal rules. We strive to be good citizens, to maintain social order, and to live up to the expectations of others. Eventually, some of us reach the post-conventional stage. Here we begin to question and challenge societal norms. We recognize that rules and laws are not always just, and we start to formulate our own ethical principles. These principles are guided by a broader understanding of justice, fairness, and the common good. Now, how does this tie into moral reasoning? Well, the stage of moral development we're at greatly influences how we make ethical decisions. At the pre-conventional stage, we might decide based on fear of punishment or desire for reward. At the conventional stage, we might decide based on societal rules or expectations. And at the post-conventional stage, we might decide based on deeply held ethical principles. Of course, it's important to remember that moral development is not a linear process. We don't neatly move from one stage to the next. Rather, we might fluctuate between stages, or even exhibit characteristics of multiple stages at once. Understanding where we stand in terms of moral development helps us understand our own ethical decisions and those of others. But how do we analyze moral reasoning in a business context? Well, just as one might analyze the notes of a symphony or study the brushstrokes of a painting, we can dissect moral reasoning by using specific frameworks. These frameworks serve as our guide, our blueprint, if you will, in understanding the complexities of making ethical decisions in the world of business. One such framework is Kohlberg's stages of moral development. According to Kohlberg, moral reasoning progresses through 6 stages, starting from simple obedience to rules in childhood, and culminating in a deeply ingrained ethical code in adulthood. These stages help us understand where an individual or an organization might fall in their ethical journey. Are they merely following rules to avoid punishment, or are they making decisions that reflect a well-developed sense of justice and fairness? Another framework we can use to analyze moral reasoning is the 4-component model. This model suggests that moral behavior is the result of 4 processes: moral sensitivity, moral judgment, moral motivation, and moral character. By analyzing these components, we can gain insight into why some people or organizations act ethically, while others do not. Moral sensitivity, the first component, involves recognizing that a situation has ethical implications. It's like having an ethical radar, picking up on signals that something isn't quite right. Then, there's moral judgment, which is about understanding what the right course of action is. This involves weighing up the pros and cons, considering the ethical principles at stake, and deciding what is right. Next is moral motivation. This is all about the will to do what's right, even when it might be difficult. It's about prioritizing ethical values over other personal or professional goals. Lastly, there's moral character. This involves having the courage and perseverance to follow through on your ethical decisions. It's about standing your ground, even in the face of adversity. These tools provide a lens through which we can examine and understand ethical decision-making in a business setting. However, understanding moral reasoning is only half the battle. The other half is putting it into practice. You see, there often exists a gap between moral reasoning and moral behavior. It's like knowing you should eat healthily, but still reaching for that bag of chips. And in the world of business, this gap can have serious consequences. Now you might be wondering what causes this gap? Well, there are several factors that can impede ethical action, and they often lurk within the very structures and cultures of our organizations. Take organizational culture, for example. This is the shared values, beliefs, and behaviors that make up the atmosphere of a workplace. If an organization's culture promotes competition over collaboration, or values results over how they're achieved, it can be challenging for individuals to act ethically, even if they know what the right course of action is. Then there's external pressures. In the business world, these pressures can come in many forms, such as market competition, financial targets, or even societal expectations. When faced with these pressures, individuals and organizations may be tempted to compromise their ethical standards in order to stay afloat or get ahead. Another factor is the lack of moral awareness. Sometimes people just aren't aware that they're facing an ethical dilemma. They might be so focused on achieving a goal or meeting a deadline that they overlook the moral implications of their actions. And lastly, there's moral disengagement, which is a psychological mechanism that allows people to behave unethically without feeling guilty. It's like a self-serving bias that justifies unethical behavior, making it seem acceptable or even necessary in certain situations. So, you see, these factors can create a minefield that makes acting on our moral reasoning a complex task. But it's not an impossible task. By being aware of these impediments and proactively working to address them, we can start to bridge the gap between knowing what's right and doing what's right. Remember, ethical behavior in business isn't just about ticking a box. It's about creating a positive impact on our organizations, our communities, and our world. In order to bridge the gap between knowing what's right and doing what's right, we need to be aware of these impediments and proactively work to address them. So, how can you apply these insights to your own business practices? First, it's important to establish and communicate clear ethical guidelines within your organization. This means setting forth specific policies that define what is and isn't acceptable behavior. But these guidelines aren't enough on their own. They need to be backed up by regular ethics training. This helps ensure everyone in the organization understands not just what the rules are, but why they matter. Next, foster a culture of integrity. Encourage openness and honesty, and make sure your employees feel comfortable reporting any ethical concerns. This means creating a safe space where individuals can voice these concerns without fear of reprisal. Finally, lead by example. As a leader, your actions set the tone for the entire organization. By demonstrating ethical behavior in all your dealings, you show your team that integrity isn't just a buzzword, but a core value. Remember, ethical business practices aren't just good for society, they're also good for your bottom line.